What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 3 of the Do It Live podcast. I'm here with Chris Fettes, right?
Correct.
Didn't screw up the pronunciation.
I don't correct anybody anymore.
All right, appreciate it. So, joined just after 9/11, right?
Right.
The military, joined the Navy, became a SEAL right out of the gate, or did you chip paint off boats, or what was
No
the
chip and
first?
paint. Yeah, I try to go straight there. Yeah.
Okay, cool. First time through Buds go, or did you recycle?
I was lucky through my career, and I don't mean this out of any ego way, but I was lucky and grateful to have gotten through everything the first time. I wasn't always the best, but
Cool.
I got through.
So, lengthy Navy career, 18 years was it? 14 years?
Only 13.
13 years, okay. 13-year Navy career, got out, book deal fell through, and now you sell ice cream, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get a book deal for ice cream recipes.
Yeah, there you go, the cooking book. Yeah. So, ice cream plug, what's the ice cream company?
Be Free Craft Ice Cream.
Okay, Be Free Craft Ice Cream. How old is it? A few months old, right?
So I started building the idea before COVID, then COVID kind of did its thing.
Yeah.
So really it's about a year old, and we've just scaled into a building to operate out of.
You just got in that building a few months ago. That's what it was,
Correct.
right? Okay, very cool. And so, what's the business model? Is it just like your normal mom and pop ice cream shop, or kind of what's that look like?
No, it's a little different from that. And I went back and forth with different business models, but where I settled was I was able to spend some time just doing these sort of pint drops in the local area. I got sort of a following for that, and it was working the same way that.
So like a t-shirt drop, like a swag drop almost.
Yeah, exactly, like a pre-order merch
Ice cream
drop,
supreme.
but just with ice cream. Yeah. It works well, and people seem to enjoy it. So then I moved into also a little bit of wholesale in the local area where they resell my ice cream. I sell it to them, and that's been fun. So we're just going to keep growing. The goal and the model that seems to be working for me is product distribution and wholesale, as opposed to a traditional ice cream shop.
Sure.
So I'm just going to keep going with that, and then we'll get the little shops done.
So is that the plan? Is like satellite shops around the?
I think it would be fun.
Regionally and then nationally, I assume.
Yeah, I think it would be fun to do that. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So lengthy career. Now you're in ice cream, and you also have a training and consulting business, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's sort of I don't want to say side hustle too much. I really do care about it deeply, as far as the sort of protector mindset towards all of these active shooter problems and all of these active shooter threats. I've had a lot of ideas for products coming from my background in contracting, where we were focused on form factors. So I just applied that to some of these ideas, and it's starting to pick up a lot of attention and awareness, and we're starting to get some big projects in places like Texas and Louisiana. So
very cool.
My two partners are really freaking awesome and are managing a lot of the logistics of that, so that I can focus on ice cream.
Nice.
And then I kind of play into that when I need to for training events and a little bit of the marketing and branding.
Transition from the scooper to the pistol and go teach guys how to do it.
It's all tactics and ice cream these
Very
days.
cool. Very cool. All right, so we've got it's a 15-ish meter warm-up drill, but it's a 1/3 size USPSA target. So we're gonna shoot 10 rounds. I call it steady fire, slow fire, whatever you wanna call it, just at your cadence, make sure your gun's on, bust whatever rust you can off in 10 rounds, and then we'll get into some drills.
Why are we going with a third size?
They fit nicely in a container, that's why.
Nice.
All right.
Uh-oh.
All right, you good? Yeah, sometimes I have a hard time counting to 10.
Yeah, I think I counted to 10. See.
All right, so we talked about form factors. I got a couple questions about that, but what you're really talking about is like vehicles that we had on deployments that looked like local vehicles that really were bulletproof, right?
Yeah, exactly. You didn't want them standing out. You didn't want people feeling uncomfortable around them. They already exist in the environment.
Okay, so what do you have for this new product then? This is your chance to plug it.
Yeah, plugs.
Yeah.
So this product is a essentially ballistic whiteboard. So it would exist in any classroom.
Okay.
The idea around it was, some of these capabilities I think with the board, the goal was to not make people feel uncomfortable. So outside of the politics of all of the, whether to ban guns or not, or whether to protect your school or not, I'm agnostic of that.
Sure.
The goal now is to solve a problem, which is protecting children and staff and people that in workplaces. So something that exists in those environments to me is very obvious. There's desks, there's things that are linear, right? Like ballistic materials can fit in walls, and the whiteboard, right? So for the whiteboard, I was really interested in that idea with my co-founders because it's mobile, right? It reminded me sort of a larger shield that law enforcement would carry.
Yeah.
And if we made it mobile enough with like rollerblade wheels or some polymer type wheels that are really...
Well, a lot of times they're just on wheels already.
They're already on wheels, but instead of caster wheels, we could put them on something that can roll
faster,
over bumps and go over, rugged concrete and stuff like that, and just carpet and things like that. And also, with the weight of the ballistic board being inside of it, it's going to be a little heavy, so we need small teachers and small people to be able to move it, right? And so we built some prototypes successfully, took it to some trade shows, started sort of building awareness around it, and we got a lot of hits. And we've got some projects going on right now. We're going to essentially, with some other school modifications, provide these whiteboards in the classrooms. And essentially it has a proprietary locking mechanism that a teacher could easily wheel this over to the classroom door. And if their training, which we've surveyed, is already to lock the door in an emergency and put the kids in the opposite corner, they can do the same thing with just a few more seconds, pull the 2 pins on the locking mechanism to lock and barricade the door to the room, and essentially creating a hasty, safe room and focusing on that sort of time in between.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it just buys them
response.
time so that they can actually be in a barricaded room.
Yes, because...
And shots can't go through the door.
Exactly, so they're not gonna hit anybody through the door. With studying some of the mentality of some of these active shooters, they're not really gonna be in a problem-solving mindset, so they're gonna move on to movement because they wanna cause the maximum amount of damage possible in those moments. Right, and so the goal is to just delay them as much as possible. So there's some other companies, a couple of different really cool companies that we've partnered with to provide a somewhat ballistic window film. And that company is called Cbond, and they essentially install this window film that bonds to the pores of the glass molecularly. So
turns non-bulletproof glass into bulletproof glass, or safety glass into bulletproof glass.
Not a rated ballistic film, but for sure anti-shattering. And so we know from our deployments when you've tested that with vehicles, like you have to pull that whole panel out with a tool, right? You can't just shatter
it won't just cave in.
You're gonna cut yourself all up. So that's another delay. And then in addition to that, just some custom form factors for some of the rooms and spaces where the boards might not fit well. We're doing barn style doors and sliders and things like that. So some of these schools have some really good
so you guys
of security there.
You guys go to the school, do a security assessment, and then see if these will work. Because obviously if it's, I went to one school growing up where I remember we were in trailers because they were renovating the school. And so that doesn't really work, right?
Yeah,
but
correct.
If you have, the other schools I went to mostly were concrete, cinder block, which obviously that works super well.
Correct. Yeah.
So when you show up to those schools to do that assessment, are you bringing ice cream for the kids, or are you like keeping the two businesses separate?
I'm working on that because it depends on the distance. Like dry ice can get me a certain distance, but there's rules with dry ice, and I'm working on it. Basically.
You're working through it.
The plan is to ship it ahead and have it there. So for sure, that's a goal. I want to bring ice cream everywhere.
Very cool. Yeah. I want to get back to the ice cream.
I brought some here today.
Yeah, I wanted to eat it in here, but unfortunately we're in indoor range and there's sticklers for the rules, so we weren't allowed to sit here and maul down some ice cream, but that was my original plan, was crushing some ice cream and then shooting a drill on the clock.
Are you serious? I thought you were joking about that.
No, I was dead serious.
We can't eat ice cream inside the range.
No, indoor ranges you can't eat ice cream because of the lead content.
Lead clouds on our ice cream.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so you got the active shooter training with the ballistic chalkboards, and we got the ice cream. I'm gonna hit rewind and we're gonna go back to your military career. Was ice cream a thing back then for you, or was that, like, how did you get started in ice cream?
So ice cream and cooking has always been a thing. That's just always was a hobby of mine growing up. I was I have two sisters. I was the one in the kitchen. My sisters were too, but I had a grandmother that immigrated from Japan with my grandfather around Vietnam time, and she was a big cook in our house. And so I learned all of the secrets And then I got into making ice cream, and I just became fascinated with it. It was just my favorite thing ever growing up as a kid. There's so much nostalgia with different flavors, and it just sort of became a thing. So that continued into the military. I had just a little machine that I upgraded to from the one that I had when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
And on certain deployments in certain places, I had the time, the resources to make a little bit of ice cream.
So you're like in Africa or in Afghanistan, like whipping up ice cream for the boys type of thing?
Yes, but the problem is it only was like a 2-quart machine.
Yeah.
And so there's only a couple pints in a quart. So I could essentially make not enough ice cream.
Yep.
So I kind of kept it like, hey, I'm making ice cream tonight for you 4 guys.
Yeah. Like batched it up kind of type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you guys have like a roster on the whiteboard type of thing where it's like these guys ice cream night or?
I didn't, because guys would fight about it. I had a mental roster. Right?
Yeah. That's smart. So
Terps could always go out and get produce.
That was my question, is like, how are you making the flavors on deployment? Was it like geographically aligned flavor profiles?
It was a combination between, a little bit. If it was produce from, there's a lot of apricots and apples, that kind of stuff, figs in those places.
Yeah.
But there's also chow halls everywhere that I could steal from. So.
Okay, yeah. So you, like Afghanistan, I assume, a lot of time there, and then probably other places in Africa. Did you do Iraq as well?
I did.
Yeah, making ice cream there?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was chow halls probably.
Yeah, just kind of steal it from the chow hall.
Yeah.
So, ingredients from the class 1, right?
Yep. Did you start like making weird flavors based on what was locally available, or did you keep it pretty tight and dialed to like?
I kept it pretty tight and dialed. I went outside the box a couple of times with things like fig, and that matches up well with like mascarpone cheese or some kind of cheese if you could find it, or even cream cheese. So I started, getting flavoring books and a lot of different culinary books and just messing around with things over the years. And then when I got out, I actually went to a legitimate ice cream school so I could learn all of those and learn how to do formulas.
So how long was the ice cream school?
It's only about 4 weeks at Penn State.
Okay.
It's been there for about 100 years. Ben and Jerry's went there. Some of the founders of some other big companies went there. A lot of the companies send their executives and folks, that they hire to learn about ice cream. So it's kind of like a business school and culinary school for ice cream.
Now, are they teaching you like everything from flavor profiling to like writing a business plan? And that's just like a 4-week crash course and here's how you start an ice cream operation?
Did you go to sniper school?
I didn't, no.
Or a breacher school or any of those things where you kind of start from basics, everything's on paper, you're doing your dope with your charts, but like in reality, you have a kestrel and you've got, electronic dope everywhere you go.
Yep.
And, charts on your gun for different distances.
Yeah, I
So it's kind of the same for ice creams, like back to algebra, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
formulating
it's very formulaic. It's not like
it's very
just
formulaic.
shoveling shit into a pot and seeing what works.
Yeah, definitely. You got to get the right balance and percentages of, like proteins, non-fat milk solids, water, dairy, sugar for sure.
So do you play with those ratios to get that perfect, like the perfect hand load, right?
Yes.
So like long range guys nerd out on like the perfect load.
Yeah, right. How many grains do you got, bro?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, definitely that is the science of it, is different people, there's infinite, just like coffee, there's infinite styles of roasting and making, right? So there'll be people out there, that might not realize that, they just love ice cream and go, hey, it's kind of hard to fuck up ice cream. And, it is, but it's not easy to make it perfectly the consistency and sweetness and hardness or softness and sort of flavor profile that you like to do. So that took time. And I finally got to a point where people seemed to like it. So
So over time with practice, you now make perfection in a bowl.
In my opinion, it's perfect for me.
Yeah.
Which I've learned that
you got to sell
that,
you got to
people
sell
sort of come to it, right? Because I went through a phase of changing it towards what I thought people wanted, and I learned pretty quickly that you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, you just run your game, right?
Yes, you do what you do, and people will come to that if it's good. Yeah.
Nice, I dig it. Well, we're gonna do what we do. We got El Presidente next. I'll run it first since these are all my drills. You got to run the shot timer for me though.
All right.
So it's going to be 2 shots on each target. So 2-2-2, a reload, 2-2-2, and we're going to go from the surrender position if I can get our shot timer on. There we go. It's the one that says on. All right. Ready when you are.
Stand by.
It's like, what's the drill again? Oh.
11.63. I think if we're doing A zone, maybe one shot thrown.
Oh no, we got a bunch out of the A's.
Oh really?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you got to remember that A zone's tiny, man.
Little, yeah.
We got 3 out of this, 2 out of this guy. Oh, we're not supposed to step on the berm either, is what they asked. That one's all in, 2 out here.
A lot of rules, man.
I know.
If you can't eat ice cream in a place, I don't know. I think they need to. I need to think that one over.
Have you ever shot a USPSA match?
No.
So the way they do it is the top ranking grandmaster is his shots are scored at 100%. So you're based off of his time. So when we did the last one, Matt Pranka is a grandmaster.
Yeah.
So when he shot, they could score mine against like his, right? So you could see apples to apples, if that made sense, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's
so.
Cool. Yeah, you know, Aaron invited me a couple times. They do them here. I might just do it just for fun.
Dude, they're fun.
It, man. I'm not
yeah,
afraid to
they're super fun.
it.
All right, you ready? All right, stand by. All right, we got 1534. Got 2 out here. If it breaks the line, it counts.
Nice.
And then 2 out here.
This is good training for me, man.
No, it's good shooting, and it's a 1/3 size A zone, so it's kind of, you know, it humbles everybody. Even if you're a USPSE GM, you're gonna come out here and be humbled.
And it's realistic to how I carry out of my little fanny pack.
Yeah, so we'll just roll right into it. I mean, what's with the fanny pack, man? I'm a big fan, but you're the first guy to show up on the show with a fanny pack.
Yeah, sorry, not sorry.
Yeah. So that's how you carry every day, that was one of the things on the last episode that I talked about with Matt was I was carrying, and the first drill we did there is what I call the performance on demand drill. And so the whole crux of that drill is you have to show up as you carry.
Yeah,
so
I like that.
He was like, well, if that's what we're doing, that's what we're doing. But he cheated and he shot a warm up to make sure, I don't think he changed his red dot, but he made sure his red dot was on. Oh, we talk about it in that episode too, but he made sure his red dot was on at 50 before we shot the episode, which I was like, yeah, dude, go for it. I mean, but you're doing it. You're really doing it, because that's not how most guys would carry, right?
I like the way you roll with that, because it's so hard to, you know, especially with our backgrounds, to show up somewhere and go, I got to make sure my magazine's good. I got to press check. I got to check my dot. You check all your stuff. But, you know, if we're, like your question, if we're applying that to our individual realities, they're all different, right? And so that's what I was saying earlier, you know, when we were catching up about just the way that we treat concealed carry and sort of some of the contradictions that I hear and stuff like that. But for me, my reality is, it's more comfortable for me to carry right here. It's very uncomfortable to put it in my belt. I drive around a lot. I'm delivering ice cream all over the place. I don't like taking it off and putting it down. I've got 2 young boys. You know, we train a lot with Nerf guns and we do a lot of gun safety stuff. But, you know, I've also got my personal things. I've got some TBIs like many of us do. I'm getting older. I'm getting forgetful, you know. And the more I add onto my plate with my businesses, the more likely I am to just forget. I put my keys somewhere. I'm like, where the hell did I put my keys? They're in the refrigerator. How'd they get in the refrigerator? You know, because I was getting milk, right? So for me, that's all taken into consideration with my everyday carry. So the best way for me, and I don't say I don't carry in my belt. Sometimes I do. Sometimes if I'm traveling a distance, or it just depends on what I'm planning to do that day, I'll think about it first thing in the morning every day. How am I going to carry today?
Sure, and it fits probably your wardrobe. Like I carry in a fanny pack quite a bit because I'm going to the gym and I'm in board shorts.
Absolutely,
you know, it's going to be in my fanny pack.
Board shorts. Another part of that reality for me is I train a lot for self-defense, because the way that my mind thinks is, you know, it's much more likely that I will engage or encounter a physical altercation in self-defense or in
that's
defense
great
of somebody
retention,
else.
right?
Yeah, like I can fight with this thing,
Yeah.
right? And you can have your gun secure too, but if you really get down to the ground, if you're a jiu-jitsu guy, if you're a striking guy, whatever it is, I don't feel comfortable with that in my belt, but I feel very comfortable with this here. Right. A lot of times this, if it's not down here, I'll open up the strap and carry it sort of like a satchel.
Yeah, like crossbody, like Indiana Jones.
Totally Indiana Jones style. Yeah. It's not a man purse, it's a satchel.
Yeah. But you actually do train like that too, right? This isn't the first time you've trained out of the fanny pack.
Correct, right? So every time I do train, which is less often these days, I'm doing a lot more ice cream, I still want to train. I still want to feel a level of currency where I'm confident in an emergency if I do need to shoot, right? But the reality of that also, in my opinion, is I could be wrong and people could disagree, but no matter how good of a shooter you are in USPA or anything else that you train, if an emergency happens and you have to take a pistol shot with a pistol like this, your concealed pistol from 50 yards away, that's a risky shot if people are around the target.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? And my natural inclination would be to close distance on that person anyways. So I still train out, to distance with a pistol like this. But my opinion is just that I would be more inclined to close that distance anyways.
Sure.
So when I do train, I do start it with however I'm concealing. And I'll go back and forth with in belt, in my satchel, or my fanny pack. I'll try it with it strapped around me. I'll time myself and get to a place where I feel current enough and proficient enough that I'm going to respond well in an emergency. And yes, the truth is, shooting like that is going to be more delayed compared to my combat pistol on my assault belt when I'm training, right? So, but when I train that way also.
But it's also realistic, right? So that to me is an extension of the way that you have to carry. So if you were training to just be as fast as you could, you'd be in like a USPSA gamer rig. You've got a totally different gun. Well, you see law enforcement and military are training more with a retention holster, and you'll see the instructors, even if they don't have a military background, will train with that similar setup. And to me, this is an extension of that. How many times do you see, a backpack that's got a holster panel, or Softlete sells fanny packs, and tons of guys carry guns in them. I've carried my gun in it. Most of us have.
I'm gonna buy one after this.
Yeah, because it's just a super simple way to just have that, grab it. And then for me, I'm usually hanging out where there's tons of other parents. I'm playing with my daughter. And so now do I want to be like bending over and I'm printing, or my gun's popping out, or just my shirt comes up and some kids like, or I've got a 3-year-old and she's like, oh, that's daddy's gun. Like she knows she doesn't touch it. She's 3 years old, but I'm sure she's going to say something about it. And now you've got everybody looking over at you going, oh, great, now there's this guy here, now everybody knows, it's like one step further than printing.
Yeah.
So for me, the fanny pack just took all that away, and it's like, you can always have it. Nobody's alarmed by it. Now they are. Now anybody who sees me in public is going to be like, he's got a gun in there. But,
but I like it. We showed up, you said, hey, just shoot how you mostly carry. And I carry 80% of the time.
I gave you the option. I said, hey, I shoot this because this is how I carry. I carry a mag in my pocket if I carry an extra one. But I love it when guys show up and they're like, no, man, that's the thing. Like, that's what we're going to do.
Dude, these days it's all about, what's good about the industry that I see coming around is that, like, we've all let go sort of our egos, right? In our personal life, in our training life. And it gives us the ability to sort of dive deeper and do the things that we want to do and mess around with the things we want to mess around with.
You had that ego, and like everything had to be on the clock. You had to be a crazy high performer. There were all these things that went into it. And one of the things that I try to get guys to come around is like, hey, you had the will to do the job. And for me, that was kind of number one. Like, no matter where you were in the stack of doing that job. And so I try to peel guys away from that like elitist mentality of like, you've got to do it this way. It's 100%.
Well, we needed that. It's the highest level of accountability that exists in the world is in these units, that we in these soft units. But now, like, I'm still accountable to my life, but my reality is totally different from that.
But with that will to fight, like now you've got the will to carry. So at least with the fanny pack you're carrying every day, or with it concealed, maybe not in the fastest place, or the biggest pistol or whatever it is, but you're still doing the deed. So
what is the cost of things you're willing to sacrifice? Of like a little bit of time. I had to drop my ego for this, going like, I'm going to be slower than he is today.
Whatever it is. I try not to make that the point of it. I got beat up last episode, right? Matt was out here and he outshot me. So
he's nasty.
We're gonna put us both way outside our comfort zone. I'm sure we've got a roughly 5-10-5 drill set up here. All right, so this next drill is, I made it up on the fly. I was just hanging out with a buddy of mine who's a big football player. I don't know what tactical application this has other than you've got some movement in here and then you're gonna shoot. So there's a bunch of things going on. You're basically going to start at this cone. It's your typical 5-10-5 drill you see in the combine. We used to run them. I don't know if you guys ran them in the teams. When I was in MARSOC, we ran them.
We did some selection stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah, usually like during the combine, the team would be like, well, I wonder how close we are to like real athletes, right? And so you would run it and you're like, oh, I'm only half a second off. And then you realize that half a second is the difference between like that guy going to the NFL or not,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's gonna be start here, you're gonna go shuffle one way or the other, 5 yards down, 10 yards across, 5 yards back to here, and then 5 shots on target. I don't even know what a good time is for this, so we're gonna start setting the standard for time here.
Hang on. Stand by.
All right.
957.
957, and we got,
I think you're in.
I'm all in. Yeah, burned it, we're good. We broke the line. I haven't run one of those drills in like 7 years.
How old are you?
I'm only 33, man.
Okay.
All right. You ready?
All right, so
You're gonna make me look stupid, I already know.
you didn't grab your pistol and unholster until you got back to the middle, right?
Yeah, once you get back to the middle, you're gonna unholster. And hopefully they can make us look cool in editing. All right, you ready? Stand by. Got a third touch, man. That's good shooting.
Threw one.
I think you got one out, 11:55. All right.
Then from now on, I'm gonna be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah. Just linking them together. Yeah, so the last Do It Live we did, we had that, I call it the performance on demand drill, but it's a 400-meter sprint. You're supposed to just run 400 meters straight, but usually what we end up with is like a shuttle for 50 meters back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah, so it takes a little bit of time off too, because you're stopping to go back and forth.
Tons of time. Yeah, it was funny. I didn't realize how much the shuttle run doing 50s added to your time. And then I called a friend of mine who's a coach, and I'm like, dude, how much does this add? And he was like, typically, because he sees guys doing those shuttles all the time.
Yeah.
And I forget what the numbers were, but it added quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah.
And that kind of brings up another thing. You talked about TBI and like forgetting your gun and all of these things where you had to be super methodical and know exactly what you were doing for a long time, but your job has changed. So my question is, how much do you find yourself having to like data dump and then reprogram job to job? Is that?
So much for me.
Yeah.
You know, it's been a path, sort of a struggle to do that specifically, almost for like every transition after my transition, right? So from my contract job to stopping that, working for some friends, and then stopping that, and then starting my own businesses. It's just like, and it's just an ongoing thing that I think just never changes.
Right.
But that's okay. It's more like I just accept that it's that way.
Yeah.
And it has to be that way because it's like in ice cream, if I lose a rubber band, I'm not going to lose sleep about it like I did in the teams.
Right.
And you're so accountable for every little thing, everything's serialized, right? But I still have to be accountable for other things. Now I have employees, I've got people, doing things, I've got deadlines to meet, and so it just has to change, But I feel like all of that change, as long as it's within, the mindset of constantly adapting and evolving, and living towards your purpose and realizing that purpose, that has been the key and the gold to sort of a successful or complete transition out of the military for me. Sure. And I realized it had nothing to do with, a lot of other things. Right?
Yeah, so are you using a lot of, like for me, I take away so much of what we did in the military planning process and apply it to business. And so one of the ones that I just ran through was like a product release, right? So let's say today we're gonna release a product. Well, that means yesterday we had to have photos ready. The day before we had to take the photos, you know, all these things. And before that we had to figure out how to make it and all of these things. Are you back planning like we used to, where it's like, all right, we've got to leave at noon tomorrow to make this target that's 8 hours away, and you back plan?
I find myself, of anything I learned in the military, I think that was the #1 tool for anything, even just waking up every day.
Sure.
It's like, what time do I need to wake up? I have kids to get to travel baseball. I've got ice cream deadlines to meet. I've got emails to do. I've got, you know, and then, like you said, I've got to drop a product, so I got to get the product shots done. So if I ever have a day that I didn't backwards plan the night before, it ends up being a shit show.
Oh, you do it the night before. You don't wake up and, okay. So you're doing it the night before. Is that a conscious thing where like you sit at your desk or your kitchen table or whatever and you go, tomorrow I got baseball with kiddos, so here's what my day looks like?
It's more like just the last moments before I'm ready to sleep, and I sort of like settle down, you know, get into like a little meditation and release everything from that day, and just quickly think about the next day, check the calendar. Because I think those things for me releases all of that off of my mind, and I can sleep better, right? Because if I do it the next morning for that day, I'm not sleeping that well because it's all on my mind for the next day. So it's almost like a data dump the night before, right? Check in with the wife, make sure everything's, you know, sort of good to go, throw my clothes out and be ready to go early in the morning.
Nice. So you're doing it the night before. You talked about meditation and sleep, and always got to remember Softly's a human performance company, right? So that's why we're doing our silly 5-10-5s. That's why we're shooting. The meditation for me, so that friend that I referenced that was in the NFL for years, he was like, dude, are you guys really doing yoga? And I was like, fuck yeah, we are, man. Like, I vividly remember on a deployment, like rolling out my yoga mat and like looking around, and it was behind the gym. And then like another dude came back there and you could see he like peaked, and he's like, oh shit, this guy's doing yoga too. And then 3 of us ended up being out there pretty regularly. So when you say meditation, are you meditating a lot? Do you have a lot of like effort into sleep hygiene? Like kind of what's that down regulation piece look like for you?
I do, and it takes a lot of discipline to keep up with it. And so, you know, it falls off a little bit sometimes. Some nights, like, you know, I'll watch, you know, a show with the wife and all that blue light, and I'll just be too lazy to throw on the blue light. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, and you know, I've got the blue light glasses and all that, so you look really nerdy wearing those or whatever, but so it changes through time, but you know, I try to stay disciplined with it. So it's like, stop watching blue light or letting blue light hit your eyes an hour before bed. You know, eat dinner.
I make my daughter do that.
It
no
helps,
TV an hour before bed, you know.
Or it's hard for us because there's only so much time for us to spend together anyway. So if we like watch, you know, a murder show, because my wife loves those.
Yeah, of course.
I'm gonna do it. You know what I mean? Because it's not the TV time; it's the together time. So
yeah, absolutely.
You know, but if I can, you know, put on the lenses and block the blue light, you know, that's huge. Get the temperature down. You know, either meditate or read a book. But for me, meditation's huge. I do it in the morning and at night. I try to. Some days I don't get to it.
How do you do that? Are you setting a timer? Are you just kind of like doing what feels right?
I have a really good playlist I've built up over time. I set a timer. I get into it. I stop whenever I feel like I'm done. There's no alarm to it or anything like that. It generally ends up being around between 20 and 45 minutes.
Oh wow!
And the intention with the evening meditations is to fall asleep. So in that case, it's okay to and I'll nod off and I'll just go to sleep. In the morning, that's different. Those tend to go longer, you know, 30 to 45 minutes, and I come out of those feeling gratitude and refreshed and just sort of ready to go for that day. So that's how I use it.
How'd you start doing that? Did you start that before the teams, in the teams? Like, when did that become a thing?
I just definitely started that after the teams. As we kind of got out, you know, some of us are able to sort of, like the human performance thing. It's like, I had the time finally to sort of get a better understanding of how to take care of myself, right? How to eat better. You know, I don't drink. I try to minimize my coffee. I drink tea in the morning instead. And it's all not out of ego or anything. It's just the discipline to feel better, right? Especially the mental side of things, you know, coming to terms with the past and, you know, even childhood stuff or just things that you had unresolved. I think it all is part of the same big picture of your overall health, right? You know, your fitness routine, your sleep routine, that stuff all matters in my opinion. Your relationships.
Absolutely. Yeah, you answered the question for me, so I was going to ask you, obviously have one vice, which is ice cream. I assume you eat the shit out of a lot of ice cream.
I'm averaging about 5 pints a week.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is that your only vice, you know? Have you cut out alcohol, which you already said you had? And then are you cutting ice cream out early the same way that you would alcohol so that you're not, you know, eating it right before bed, and kind of what's that look like?
For sure, ice cream is the vice. I used to always be a really bad sweet tooth, like uncontrollably.
Yeah.
Right. So I had to, like, you know, gather that as well. I kind of fix that problem as well.
Sure.
Alcohol was easier for me to drop just because I have sort of an allergic reaction to it.
Oh, really?
I get super like flushed, and it even looks like it's honestly, people are always like, "What's wrong with you?" And then I spend more time explaining than enjoying drinking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'll have a drink on special occasions or,
Sure.
or here and there. So like no big deal.
Yeah.
I just don't drink regularly, so it just wasn't that hard for me to cut out because I already have sort of an allergy to it.
Yeah, that's the way I did it actually, was I have if it's more of a pain in the ass for me to explain why I don't drink, then I'll just have a beer, because I don't have an issue with alcohol, but I hate the feeling. I don't sleep as well even after one beer if it's later in the evening. Now, if I do a really hard workout and it's hot, like, to me there's nothing better than a cold beer right afterwards.
Yeah, same.
But it's really early in the day, and it's pretty rare for me to do that. And so that's a tough one to explain to people, where it's like, I don't drink, but there's no any real reason. I just don't like the way that I feel post-alcohol.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what it really is more about, is that it just fucks me up, just messes me up for a whole day, a couple days after that. And then as I started to pay more attention to some of the researchers out there doing good stuff, like Huberman Labs is a really good one.
Sure, yeah.
You know, the effect that it has on you, and going like, wow, all those years, I really was just like poisoning myself, and interrupting my sleep. I guess if I could go back into the military to my younger self and give myself some advice, that would have been one of the things. But at the same time, some things just had to be the way that they were, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I had that debate with a friend of mine. He was a ranger that, like, we were talking about the difference in culture now, where like young guys in all the communities are very health conscious, they're very fit, and you and I were kind of in that transitional phase where, like, coming in, it was drinking and fighting was the norm.
That's two of the three, right?
Like that, yeah, like that wasn't even a question. Was like, what are you doing this weekend? Well, I'm going to go out and drink and probably get into a fist fight, right?
Yep.
Among other things.
And we did.
Yeah, that was on repeat. And back then, that almost felt like you had to have that as part of the culture to go to war and do the things. Well, and to fit in, but to me, it almost bred that culture of, like, I still believe in, like, interpersonal violence being a fantastic mental training tool, to where, like, you do Muay Thai and you've done jiu-jitsu, to where, like, you're gonna go hands-on with somebody. To me, it's a really good training tool across the board, whether it's shooting, combat, self-defense, whatever. And I felt that was a part of it back then, like going in and being like, oh, I'm the baddest dude in the bar when you're a 22-year-old kid,
Right, yeah.
Wasn't the case, but it's impressive to me now, like you said, that those young guys have the wherewithal to be like, no, man, like, I'm not going out and drinking because it fucks my sleep up.
Yeah. Yeah, and like the mentality now is like, if I would have realized back then that was, somewhat of a blockage to being the best version of an operator that I could be.
Right.
And I felt that, I would have changed something, what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's not to say that I'm ungrateful for the past, but that's just true now,
Well, and you probably did later in your career, I assume.
Right, as you mature,
Yeah, like I tapered off my drinking as my career changed and evolved.
Yeah.
I wasn't like that the whole way through, but as a 22 to 25-year-old, that was absolutely the norm. And like you said, if I could go back, you would have been such a higher performer. Like, if you got 8 hours of sleep instead of 2,
Yeah, but there's so many other components to all of that, physical and mental health as operators, because, we go through so much stuff. Everyone has their experiences. They've got their things, their life, to deal with. And so, I don't judge anybody, how they dealt with it, or even my past self. I'm just sort of grateful that I was able to come to the realization that, it's okay to take care of yourself.
Yeah, it's okay to be okay. That's one of my favorite phrases.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the guys dealing it with themselves, and then I also felt like when you're young, you're watching your friends that were your age not in that profession, and almost felt like you were missing that. So you tried to add that piece back into your life of like, oh, well, I'm not partying like my buddies, as much. So now when I do, I'm going to go way off the deep end.
Right. And we all feed off each other.
Yeah, and went so far in that direction and not realizing how terrible it was. But when I was talking to my friend, he kind of jokes like, no, we used to be able to get hammered and then wake up and work out. We should still be able to do that.
We used to go on missions fucking still hammered
some
from the
guys
night
did.
before, dude.
Yeah.
And like the Iraq days.
I guess my point was like, you should not have been doing that, and you can't think that that's the measure of success. It's
Right.
like getting back to that. The measure of success is like you have evolved past that to
Absolutely.
where that's not a priority, and sleep or being healthy is the priority.
Yes, right.
So-
Yep. And it's okay for that change to happen, in my opinion.
Right, yeah, exactly. All right, well, we got one more shooting drill, so let's go set it up.
All right.
All right, so this is gonna be a different drill, but we are gonna close the gap based on the training that you provide and you saying, hey, like I'm gonna close that distance. So we're gonna close that distance together at the same time. We don't have to be neck and neck. As soon as we hit that first set of cones, that's where we slow down, draw, and take one headshot on a 1/3 size target. So we'll see how this goes and see how slow we go. Yeah, these are actually child soldiers that we're shooting at. We'll go on the buzzer. Do you want your gun out, or do you want it? How do you want to do it?
It's your show. What do you
It's your drill.
Let's go. Let's go. You have to draw it.
Okay, you gotta draw at the cone.
Yeah. But I'm placing my finger on my zipper.
Whatever you want to do. All right, on the buzzer. Ready? Stand by. Go. Oh. Are we in? I think I'm burning the line.
Let's see.
We'll let Austin pan in on there and see how much. Is that a headshot? That's definitely in the neck of the child soldier.
Yes. There's a little crack right there that's in.
Yeah, I think it burned it. You're way in. Yeah, Chris is way in. No, that was fun. I figured that would be cool how we were talking about.
That was awesome.
Yeah. The
That was a hot.
we got a good pop out of that. Yeah. But I liked how you were saying you're gonna close the gap. You know, we're both shooting subcompact pistols with a red dot, and because that's what we carry, right? And you were saying the first thing you're gonna do is close the gap.
It's just I feel like it's just an instinctual thing to do with a pistol.
Yeah, I think with whether you had a gun or not, you're going to do that in that situation if you're that guy. And if you don't know you're that guy, you're not going to do it, right? And not throwing any shade to the people that wouldn't, but if you are, like I have a good friend who's a firefighter, so very different, but he has 2 children, and we've talked about that where he was like, dude, I'm going into a school if he's nearby, even if he didn't have his gun on him.
Yeah.
And that's why I say the will to do that job is the most important part, right? And so you can debate that where it's like, well, do you want the guy who really sucks but is willing? The answer is no, but I would say being willing to do it is like, that's the first one to cross the threshold.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, then let's say they weren't carrying that day and something happened. There's just infinite situations in my mind where these things are happening that I'm imagining the layout, the dead space between, the threat and innocent people and yourself,
Yep.
and the opportunity to move and close the distance on that person might be there,
Right.
even if you're not armed. And then also studying the videos and just watching their demeanor and the way that they sort of just, I'm just walking around and they don't really have that much situational awareness because in their heads they're like, I'm the one with the gun, I'm the hunter. Nobody's going to come after me.
I also think that those, usually children,
They're not looking around.
they're
much.
terrified too, I would assume. Like
Yeah.
they know that that's probably their last day.
Yeah.
And so I guarantee you they're terrified, and they're also not mentally there, right? Like there's a big argument that this is a
Right.
mental health crisis, if anything. It's not somebody who's coherent that's doing it. So yeah, I think like you said, even if you don't have the firearm on you, there may be an opportunity to affect change, gun or no gun,
Yeah,
pen or no
absolutely.
pen, right?
Yeah. And if you're that guy with the willpower, like you said, you wouldn't know that if you were just, I don't have a weapon with me, so I can't do it.
Right, which is something interesting to give up that ground of you could be out without a pistol, right? Most guys, I think that are going to watch this think like, oh, I carry all the time. And it's like, well, you ever fly on an airplane? Because I don't carry my gun on an airplane. I don't know about you. And so to say you always carry, I think is, it's nice if you can say you're always carrying, but the reality for most guys isn't that, right? So yeah, I mean, thanks for coming on the show, man. I had a great time. We're going to eat some ice cream and talk ice cream for a little bit as well, but I definitely appreciate you coming out, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, bro.
Thanks, man.